Edict of War against Starseeds. Reference from historical timeline trigger events, Edict of War against Starseeds, Indigos and angelic human population. 22 years ago, negative alien agenda groups offer hostage agreement to allow evacuation of selected humans by Lyran-Syrian guardian races, before intended Armageddon destruction agenda or pole shift. Dear Starseed family, it may be obvious right now that many of us that are awake to the spiritual warfare targeting Starseed people are enduring accelerated forms of dark force manipulation and targeting, in order to punish our collective efforts towards waking others up to the reality of planetary ascension and disclosure events. Since the summer solstice, the immensity of gamma-ray transmissions continues on with unprecedented levels of solar plasma activation, and this has increased the aggression of various negative alien agenda groups entities involved in the Edict of War made against Starseeds, which over the past few weeks has ramped up into the next stage of war over timelines. The attempt to hijack people involved in forming positive groups and in spiritual communities is very aggressive, especially towards those of us that are working in alignment with the ascension cycle and reclamation of the Christos mission. As we are enduring a lot of change at this time, the negative alien agenda group's aggression and disruption tactics have been very high, to prevent awakening people from focusing on the next stages of developing group projects and communities. To be a group leader in the Ascension disclosure space means recognizing this is a Wild West terrain of continual spiritual warfare and takes high levels of spiritual and emotional maturity, nerves of steel, a high tolerance for neutralizing fear-based attacks and intimidation tactics, with a substantial spiritual toolkit that includes deep faith and love for God. First, many of us have been hit with a mountain of controller system bureaucracy and targeted with lawfare, compliance issues or multiple problems that have suddenly surfaced from out of nowhere. This is the overwhelm and wear down strategy, an intentional method of targeting that uses a fire hose to spray loads of miasmatic superimpositions, for manifesting difficulties that interfere with the Starseed individual or group projects, in order for the targeted people to just give up their mission because they are being drowned in the mud pit through an inorganic stream of unending problems. Let's review this strategy further, as the enemies of humanity constantly use greater strength in applying heavy forces that overwhelm their opponents, by creating never-ending difficulties designed to wear him down and erode his willpower, resources and resiliency. Bureaucracies, impossible compliance, insurance, tax and legal channels that keep people bogged down in never-ending paperwork, long lists and queues, under the threat of intimidation, or threat to financial security or persecution. This is also carried out in legal forms via death by 1,000 paper cuts, through the increase of overwhelming problems and burdensome bills. When people's hopes are crushed and their expectations for their lives are confused and burdened, eventually they become so drained they have no energy to refuse the constant attempts of subjugation and just give up. This added aggression has made it very trying for many of us, and the point of this article is to let you know that this is indeed happening. There is a full spectrum attack toward many Starseeds and awakening groups on this shared mission or planetary ascension pathway. If we are awakened and not feeding into the deceptions and lies of the one world order agendas that the negative alien agenda groups and controllers have set up to enslave us all, we are getting our websites and social media accounts hacked into, our channels or messages deleted, shadow banned and censored, or through multiple other means that are used to target our groups, steal our resources and prevent our messages from being available online. Thus, sadly, there has been a massive increase in observing mental fracturing in people that have not prepared themselves mentally or emotionally to come into energetic stabilization and further coherence, and have been severely fractured by recent events of shadow rising. The trauma profile of individuals that are lacking deeper self-awareness are rapidly descending into confusion, incoherence and dysregulation, which makes them appear to be mentally and emotionally compromised or impaired. This group doesn't seem to remember what they have said to others and deny responsibility for their own behaviors. They have outbursts and tantrums when they don't get what they want, They make up stories to reframe reality into personalized ideological beliefs or live in some kind of delusional state of confirmation bias, unwilling or unable to look at facts or face the truth that is staring them in the face. Self-assessment, critical thinking and common sense are mostly absent, so they are completely unaware of the necessity to make self-corrections when having gone out of balance, such as when feeling triggered and stressed out. Our planetary matrix is reconnecting with the cosmic spirit body, as the universal gates open into the cosmic planes and as the Emerald Order has introduced itself into our realm. A massive field of universal collective shadow has been dismantled and needs to be transmuted. It's understanding the vastness, the massiveness of what this collective shadow contains, the pain that it holds. Understanding that when we touch into that collective pain, when we feel that pain of collective soul fracture, it's immense and sometimes it can be overwhelming. Thus, we have to have a strong and clear spiritual foundation to process something that is presently so enormous that if we are not prepared, it can create mental fracturing. If we are too ambitious, reckless or ignorant and charge head-on because we lack situational awareness, this can create more confusion and dark energy that feeds into artificial systems of mind control and delusions, and this will appear as false identities, alternate identities and red wave cloned holograms. Previously, we have shared that the primary dark entity manipulation to target starseed people is the mind game of using red cube clone imposters, false or cloned identities that have been projected to them through AI, machinery, which is used as an effective spiritual warfare tactic to divide and conquer the unified cooperation within spiritual communities, lightworker groups, and grid working efforts. This is an extension of MK-Ultra-based targeting of the starseed population to be derailed into consciousness traps using the many tactics of information warfare, psychological warfare and spiritual warfare. Many people are unaware of how to test the energies of cloned or false identities that are projected through AI, machinery and discern the quality of their messaging. Instead, they are tempted by the messages of ego flattery or other negative ego blind spots, where they either believe they are the cloned identity or are praying and talking to that false or cloned identity in a special relationship that they think is real, or they believe that the deceiving spiritual imposter is truthfully representing themselves. Red cube clones and holograms are made from advanced artificial intelligence utilized by the negative alien agenda groups, therefore there is no love, no heart and no deep emotional feelings present. It is pure computerized intellectualism with statistics and information being regurgitated into data streams which are processed by the lowest egoic layers of the mental body, the area of the consciousness body where there is no access to higher sensory perception, intuition or emotional body interaction. Therefore, people that seem exceptionally smart and even brilliant with their data streams of AI, coded intelligence complete with complex maps and extensive graphics, are intellectualizing information that is devoid of heart, soul and spirit integration. Thus, they fracture easily under pressure because in AI signals, the spiritual love of God is not present and the female principle is missing. Some of these people are visible thought leaders, truthers or influencers in the ascension and disclosure space, with large groups or online followers that appear to feel energetically different with artificial overlays, many with severe addictions. They may also appear physically different in that their body language is defined with computerized intelligence streams, odd jerking movements, incoherent babbling, artificial facial expressions, distant or dissociated eyes when there is identification made with some new space identity or spiritual imposter that suddenly started to communicate with them. It is important to note that individuals that are controlled by some kind of entity attachment or artificial technology overlay will not be able to maintain direct eye contact in conversation with someone who is deeply embodied in spiritual truth with a loving heart. The fracturing can appear as the belief of an identity of a famous person on the spiritual path, such as certain biblical characters, whether it is an identity fixation on I am Jesus, I am Palladian so and so from the Galactic Federation, I am Enki or Enki's returning, I am this identity or that identity, I am ascended master so and so. This is very important to understand, that if we do not clear our negative ego and understand the ego identity and its functions in ways that it can directly harm our consciousness, this mental imbalance will be fixated on the perception of yet another false identity. When people insert false identities or AI, holographic cloned identities, what they are basically doing is swapping out their ego personality identity in this moment for another identity that is more appealing or glamorous for them or their audience. Maybe they get a radical increase of followers because they have new intelligence tidbits to share, or some other social media clickbait type of astral glamour that is spiritual entertainment. This is not healthy and it is not advised, because believing you are some artificial identity or talking to one can be exceptionally dangerous. When we connect directly with God, the most important thing for us to understand, especially on the path of anchoring foundational stabilization and heart-based coherence, is to recognize ourselves as part and parcel of God consciousness without any intermediary identity. What that means is when we directly connect with God or Christ, know that Christ is the physicalization of God, and Christ is not only the figure of Jesus the Christ. Christ the cosmic Christos is a God-sovereign free cosmic citizen, and this potential is the ultimate destiny and ascension path for all of us. So, understanding that we want to break away from the veils of false identity and further, artificial identity clones that act as virtual reality masks that cover up and manipulate our true spiritual identity. We do not want to place another identity as the authority over us. We want to develop our direct relationship with God in the identity we were born into right now, which is the authentic ascending identity. Thus, we're very clear about the identity we're in now during this embodiment. We may have memories from other timelines with identities, but we're not attached to them. It doesn't directly inform us of our future direction or govern our current ascension path. What does inform us is that we are internally directed, we are connected to our spirit, to God, without intermediary, and that means removing false identities, cloned identities and false gods that steal our power away from achieving personal autonomy and spiritual self-sovereignty. Even when we remember these other identities as a part of other timelines or memories, it's important to understand in the collective shadow, we are undergoing spiritual warfare between the identities that may have existed in several higher or different timelines. To stay safe, to stay spiritually aligned, to build your stabilization and coherence, we need to be directly in relationship with God's source and intend to remove all intermediaries in the process, that may appear as various famous figures or biblical identities, or even space brothers or other popular names for ascended masters commonly used in the New Age group. We are not to become fixated on special or famous identities that take our authority to connect with God away, just as we cannot fixate on the negative ego or the ego constructs that form into lower desires and addictions within us. If we are fixated on an identity, that means we're being attached to egoic personality, and we've got to learn to go inside into our heart and develop the direct relationship with God, the direct relationship with ourselves, and release the need to know names and specific material around starseed genetics or other galactic timelines and their identities. So please heed my loving warning, do not get glamorized with famous identities, doing galactic work, or with grid work so that you are easily manipulated into hero-messiah complexes run by dark forces and their AI, consciousness sweeps. Work your negative ego shadow clearing tools and gain maturity and stability in your discernment, through negative alien agenda groups education with the search function in the Ascension Glossary and knowing how to discern energy signature skill sets. Now in the outer environment, the collective shadow is rising through the dark night of the planetary soul, where we cannot run and we cannot hide from these dark shadows any longer. Many times, it is in the darkest hours of despair drenched in our own shadows that we may experience a profound epiphany and finally begin to see the eternal light of higher truth and clarity. The positive aspects are that many non-spiritual and spiritual people are waking up simultaneously to see that the nature of the reality is actually an inverted system, and that the public is being lied to. With military-grade level propaganda. We are undergoing a very special time with the global awakening, and it is prudent to recognize that this planetary event remains hidden and is being used against us. Very few people are aware of the depths of spiritual warfare with artificial or cloned identities, of the dark night of the soul, or aware of what weaponry is being used to take control over our minds and attach false identities. This is why it is absolutely critical for us to remove those intermediary identities and those false or cloned identities that use glamorous spiritual entertainment to interfere with our ability to connect directly with God and our higher spiritual selves. May you be blessed in the virtuous spirits of faith, spirits of truth in which your direct relationship with God inspires loving kindness, peace and calm in the most difficult times, to fill and surround you with the spiritual power and confidence in your ability to overcome personal challenges or a crisis of faith. With a loving heart, Lisa Renee. With a loving heart, Lisa Renee. With a loving heart.